Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of B is for Build. We're here working on our 1967 Mustang Fastback Shelby Tribute build. Trying to get this baby ready for SEMA in just a couple of weeks. In the last few episodes, we came in with a 2019 Ford Mustang GT. We cut the entire body off of it to prepare it for a classic body swap. Then we got the side panels on and fitting up nicely, placed our roof panel, our rear quarter panels, and some of our rear panels to make sure everything is fitting nicely in the back. In today's episode, we're gonna go ahead and mock fit things like our doors, our hood, our fenders, check out our front bumper. We're gonna make sure the rake of the vehicle is appropriate and start making way for all of those body panels to live on the car permanently. So let's get to it. 1967 Mustang fenders are an absolute menace. They are the worst part of this whole project. To put them in the right spot, you need a body line. The body line in the back starts right there, follows through on the door, and then connects up with the fender. So we really need doors. We are missing some door latching mechanisms. It's a part that we don't have. So what we're gonna do for now is take our door hinges. We're gonna be bolting them up here, and then we'll bolt those to our door, and then we'll swing our doors shut, and then we'll just ratchet strap around the entire vehicle so the doors look like they're relatively where they should be. Like I said before, this is just a test fitting, but these are some of the best fitting doors that we've ever had, thankfully, on any of these builds. So let's hope it continues on. Next up, I think we're gonna be looking at hood/fender placement, following the body lines and hood fender lines. It's really scientific, you know, just laying parts around. Guys, this is a really exciting moment for us because this fender is fitting really, really nicely. It's just rested on there, so it's at a bit of a tilt. It's fitting really nicely. It's looking really good. It's showing us a front end height that we're happy with. What I tell you what I am concerned about is hood clearance. It really, when we look at this fender here, now keep in mind, it does need to come up a little bit. Boy, does it look challenging to fit that hood on here. But let's not worry about that. We've thought that before. So let's not worry about that until it's actually a problem. So here's what we got to do to keep going forward is Oscar's going to go ahead and cut up the other fender that we got right there to make it fit. If you're following along at home, the main cuts that we did are to clear the strut tower right there. And then there was also a little bit of trimming to get it flush with the side skirt down there. And then the headlight bucket connector azoid right there. Those all got trimmed up. So Oscar's gonna be doing that over there. While he's doing that, I'm gonna be putting this on a diet. We need a lot of this space out of the front end. So front impact bar is gonna go. We're gonna have to rebuild one of those on our own. All this plastic stuff doesn't need to be here. We can't really build off of it anyways. So I wanna get rid of that. Take out the hood latch here. We're not gonna need that. And well, I guess we should keep windshield wiper. Oh, nope. We don't have the sprayers anymore. So I'll go ahead and remove that guy as well. We're gonna have to fool the sensor there so it thinks it's full and it thinks it's still there, which is not a big deal. I'll label it and we'll hotwire it later. So I'm gonna get rid of the windshield wiper setup as well. Windshield washer. All right, we got the front end a little bit decluttered here. Got a lot of stuff out of the way. That really shortens it up a lot. And again, we will rebuild a new front impact bar. We got the other fender trimmed and put on there, and it's looking good. So now we have the hood. Hood's incoming. We got to try and make space for the hood to rest it on here, and the hood is going to help us set our width from the inside of the right fender to the inside of the left fender. Once we know that width, then we can start building some temporary mounts to get the fenders on here in a sturdy way. Guys, I have to say we are very pleased with ourselves right now. You can see like lowness. We're good on the lowness. The front end, it looks low enough. We didn't build the car totally sideways, so the front end was like sky high. The hood does fit. It clears. It needs to be actually lifted up to meet up with the fenders, which is perfect. Super, super happy about this. So all of this work went in to basically verify that these original body panels that we put on the last episode, that these are in the right, like at the right orientation, which means we can weld up the top seam, we can weld up the bottom seam, we can start really, welding. Permanently installing this stuff because the body is in the right spot on the Mustang. So excited about this. This is gonna look fantastic.
It's about at this point when your boy ended up getting real sick and Oscar had to ride solo. Basically what happened, Oscar and I both took a weekend to hang out with our families. I went out to New York and I was basically just checking up on the ball. Still there, hasn't moved. And I got back and I got really, really sick during my travels and didn't want to be around Oscar and get him sick and his whole family sick. So Oscar had to ride solo for a while and take on he's going to take on quite a bit of stuff. So what he's working on right now is the rear chassis support, because we cut out that cross member where on, say, a 2019, that would be where your rear deck would be that your speakers would mount into and stuff like that. This one has to be a lot further back, so we wanted to fabricate something that does double duty. So it ties in and structurally supports the strut towers, but then it's also going to hold the trunk hinges in the right space. So Oscar built the cross beam where it has to be. There's really no options of where it gets to go. It's got the side supports on, and then you'll see him, he's gonna go ahead and support and box all these things in. To start working on the hinges. Basically just bolt the hinges to the trunk, let them sit at their natural position, then set the trunk where it needs to be, and then you can build the brackets off of that from the inside out. Next up, roll cage. Oscar's jumping into the roll cage construction. So he's done all his math. He's got all the measurements and the amount of material take up. So when you do a bend, it actually uses up a little bit of the material. So you have to calculate how much material goes into the bend so you get, say, the middle flat part to be as wide as you need it. And Oscar's got that pretty dialed. He's been using this machine for a couple years and he's gotten really good at it. So you can see the goal here is to have 2 bends on each side, not just 1 bend on each side, 2 bends on each side, and that's gonna hug it really, really close to the body. It's gonna allow us to lay the interior pieces over the roll cage and basically hide half of the roll cage. And he knocked out this bar first try, which is amazing. And then he's gonna start working on the cross brace for the back, as well as spreader plate that work to distribute the load in the event of an accident, so your posts for your roll cage don't just punch through the flooring. So right here you can see he's taking off material, taking off paint and stuff like that, so he can weld in a spreader plate that will distribute load, and that welds directly to the roll cage. On the back brace here, Oscar did something a little bit different than we usually do, and I want to ask your guys' opinion what you think. So usually we do 2 downshoots that go straight back, and then we do an X basically like right behind where the driver would be, and we do that X. Oscar mixed the 2 things, so he's doing an X that goes down and back. I think structurally, I know some structural engineers watch. Let me know in the comments what you think. I think structurally it should be fine. We could add some downshoots as well to this, but they are going right into a good solid frame section. I think it's okay. Next, we need to modify the stock filler location from the 2019 to move it over to the 67. Now, normal 67 comes straight out of the back of the trunk, the back fill panel there. Well, that's not gonna work for this build because it wouldn't be going downhill into our fuel tank. It's gotta go downhill the whole way. But luckily, you know, this is a Shelby tribute build, and Shelby developed this really cool Le Mans style cap that went up here, probably because it allowed you to fill your car a lot faster, I would guess, using the gravity to just flood all that fuel straight down into the tank, and then you could drive on. So the Le Mans style cap goes in that back quarter panel there, and what Oscar's doing is modifying the stock tubing. It's metal tubing. He's cutting it, bending it, and tweaking it to be able to route up from the point where it would normally go sideways, out what you can see on the screen right here, and then it's going to go up and out of our rear quarter panel and out of our Le Mans style cap. And then to seal it off, we've got a screw down cap that has a nice little O-ring, so it's airtight, it's sealed off, and then there's also the standard OEM vent tubes that coming out the same area as well. On to the front end, unwelding the fenders real quick and starting to take a look at the cowl situation. So more stuff has to be cut back, more room has to be made to be able to fit the 67 cowl. Now the 67 cowl basically, well, it does come in two pieces. You got the upper piece and the lower piece. Both of them really got to go on a diet to be able to fit this body swap transformation. So you can see Oscar trimmed all the fat off of around the cowl. It's just unnecessary metal that you don't need. It covers up important things in the engine bay. Best to get rid of it. And then he's matching a piece from the bottom, and he's going to match it up, and he's adding supports in here to make sure that it's got enough rigidity and enough strength, because this place has to be able to hold the windshield and everything like that. So that's the bottom piece of the cowl right there, cutting that piece up, putting that on a diet as well, and then test fitting it in, make sure it's good, and then you can see he's actually formed it to the upper cowl piece and then welding in supports all the way across. So that's a little bit beefier of a piece than it started, which is good, and he's got that placed in there. Gonna go ahead now and just do some sheet metal work, sheet metal off everything else where we don't want any water to be able to fall down. So this all gets tack welded in here, spot welded in, and then seam sealed. That way no water can enter into the car in any place that it wasn't supposed to be able to. No air, no moisture, no steam, none of that stuff can get into the cabin because this is an entryway from the cabin. So building this steel sheet that we can weld in here and form around and weld in here and then seam seal around is really crucial. It makes it stronger, but also keeps all the weather out as well. And last but not least, we need doors, and we have door shells. Dynacorn sells reproduction door shells, and man, the quality varies drastically. Some of them are great, some of them are in terrible shape. And over the years of building these Mustangs, we have like 6 or 7 different doors sitting around the shop with different amounts of parts on the inside. And we bought a lot of new parts for the insides of these doors, the guts, but it's hard to order a full set. It's kind of an awkward situation. If you're doing something like this at home, I would recommend just junkyarding and finding a good quality complete door from a junkyard. But these doors have to have the fastback glass placed in them, so he's going after that. And then things like the window roller mechanisms, the door latching mechanisms, those types of things all need to be swapped out. One more cool thing that we're doing on this car though, that if you remember our last swap series that we attempted to do before its tragic end, is electronic door pops that wire into the 2019 Mustangs wiring harness and everything like that. So when you take the key and you hit unlock, it actually triggers a door popping solenoid that lives within the door that Oscar's installing in these things that connects to the door pop. Well, it's not a door pop, sorry, it's a lock pop. So unlock will unlock the door and lock will lock the door with the keys, which is just a really nice thing to have in a vehicle like this. So that's super cool. The 2019 key fob will control the trunk and the door lock and unlock, which is all the buttons it has. And finally, the door cards on 67 Mustangs are pretty grody. They don't really look that good, so we like to remake them out of some form of metal. These ones are going to get upholstered, which is a little different than we've done in the past. But first step, take a nice sheet of aluminum, template out that door panel, that door card area, and Oscar's transferred over all the holes, drilled all the holes for all the bolts, and countersunk all those holes so it'll look really nice and pretty. And then we're just gonna go ahead and upholster over that as well to give it a nice little texture change.
And we're back. We're all back. I'm super happy to say Kyle's made it back. Zane's over there in the corner. We're all here. We got the whole team back together. And let me show you the good work that Oscar's got done. All right, so I talked about all this during the time lapse, but I just want to show you a little bit more of the results of Oscar's work. So we've got the cowl through here. We're going to go ahead and install the windshield wiper arms and little pokey outy bits that come through here that attach the actual wiper arms to them. So we're going to get those behind the cowl before we start to finish that up, seam seal it up, and get the, let's call it the outer skin of the cowl, ready to be welded on. That's actually the first thing Kyle's going to jump into this morning. Working our way back here a little bit more, we've got our awesome roll cage. This roll cage is going to be in focus. There you go. And it actually tucks behind the interior pieces. This is a thing that we haven't done before. It's the classic 67 fastback interior pieces. I bought all of them for this project. So these will get trimmed out, but the roll cage has been built out. It's got its base plates right there, spreader plates, right there and coming back and coming into an X. The reason we do roll cages, like half cage at the very least on all of our builds like this, is that we did cut off a lot of the roof structural integrity. So you really want to have that level of safety where if this thing rolls over, you have something above your head that's really nice and strong. So we got a beefy 1.7 inch DOM tubing half cage with the crossbar in there. We know you guys really like the crossbar. We saw the comments on the last build where we only did a single bar, so we got that beautiful X in there. And I'm really excited about the space that grants us right behind the driver's seat. I am thinking nitrous bottle, because it's just kind of a classic for this build. Also would be great for luggage space, but yeah, nitrous bottle. Coming back here, we've got the Shelby really started running these things in Le Mans, I believe. It's a Le Mans style gas cap. And this is definitely a Shelby touch. And so that had to get integrated into the standard gas fill. So you can see that's the OEM Mustang gas fill right there. And we're going up and we're up here. We've got some more tweaks to make to this thing. We're gonna bring it down a little bit, and we're gonna change a few small things about the inside of here. But we're getting really close, so that's the next thing Oscar's gonna jump into. And coming back through here to the back, we've got this, we talked about building this kind of like plateau thing that comes up. It stabilizes the rear on the strut towers. So we're gonna build some spreader plates to help stabilize those through the body a little bit more. But then also it does the rear trunk hinges. So these are the hinges for the trunk lid, and those are all together. So that leaves this big gaping hole in the back here. We've got some exhaust that's in the way, needs to be cut off. We've got the rear tail panel that needs to go on, the rear valance that needs to go on, and the rear fill panel that needs to go on. And that is a piece that I'm gonna be jumping into right now.
So although I'm here on this one, I'm gonna just narrate it a little bit too, because we did so much work, it kind of got out of hand. We had a lot of work to do before we could move on to the next step. And so what we wanted to do is do more structural rigidity than what we did in the last body swap that we've done, like Oscar's Mustang. Although it works perfectly fine, we're just trying to make it better in ways we know we can. So that's what welding all of this sheet steel into here is. It's heavy duty sheet steel. It's all getting welded in to help really connect even stronger the 67 shell body that we're putting on back up to the 2019 without losing any structural rigidity or building any weak spots. And then we're coming back to this cowl area where we had worked on before. Just run a bead of seam sealer over every single crack, every single place. Look at any OEM factory car and how much seam sealer they use. Like rip up the trunk, the liner of your trunk, and start looking around at how much seam sealer they use. It's a lot. It's good stuff. It's lightweight. It doesn't take up a lot of, usage, but it can really save you from having any leaks or any issues. So seam seal the crap out of all those seals, hit it all with Steel It Gray right there, and getting the cowl ready to go. So I went ahead and sanded up the cowl so it's ready. And then the last piece that I did there is a little bit hard to see is we run a peak bead. So similar to how you would install a windshield, a high bead across the windshield area right there to so when we bond that upper cowl to the lower cowl, there cannot be any air or water getting through. Onto the back end, the stock exhaust mufflers and everything, you got to get the chop. We're going to have to integrate mufflers further back in line with the exhaust. And I'm working on the back, getting the rear fill panel in, placing that, the rear valance in, placing that, so we can start looking at how we're going to build out a rear bumper.
We got the cowl on here. Now, we did a lot of kind of like side work. We sealed everything off. We seam sealed it all off. So any air that comes through here under the hood that comes this way will not make it into here. This is fully sealed off with seam sealer, welding, different plates, and different stuff like that. Then we came in, we wanted to do a little bit more frame reinforcement than we've done before. So we took real nice thick metal and went from here over to this place to the older body too. So that's gonna really help with rigidity and different things like that, because this would probably be the weakest part in the build. So we added steel there, and kind of connected it all up. So that's looking great. Oscar redid the gas cap, slid it down a little bit, and actually completely rebuilt the whole fuel neck and all the technology in the fuel neck. And I'm really happy with the way that it, how it turned out. So you just unscrew this here to get access to the fuel neck, and then you can fuel up. So it's really nice now. There's a little bit of finishing work to be done on this, you know, polishing, body work underneath, but that's solid and that's in there. In the back here, I've been working on body paneling, and we got all the panels test fit. Everything's good. Everything's trimmed up the way it needs to go. Rear valance is good. This piece is good. Rear trunk is looking good. So all that is great. But I still wanted to leave it removable because I'm going to pop this out because we're going to do some more serious work in the back here, and it's going to be like a lot easier if it's not there. First thing we worked on was the EVAP. We got to move the EVAP because it sits like right down here, and it's the lowest thing, big ugly box. Got to slide that all the way back and get all the room that we can. So to do that, you can see we got a lot of the hoses hanging out here. We're going to be rerunning a little bit of the hoses, and then that'll allow us to relocate that back there. Kyle's getting the hosing right now. While that's happening, I'm going to start capping off these rear frame rails to put a real rear bumper in here. That's going to be this guy right here. That's the OEM 2019 Mustang GT rear bumper. That's going to connect up to the frame rails. This bumper is going to act a little bit more cosmetically. It would certainly work in the event of a fender bender, but it's not the actual like crash bumper. That's going to be that guy right there. So I got to get that plated in, and then I could I'll be able to weld that in there. It's going to also nice structural rigidity as well. While I'm working on the back side, this is kind of going to be the theme, is I'm going to be working on the back structure stuff. Oscar's going to start working more on the front. Now that we have this cowl in here, it tells us how we're setting our fenders as well. And now that we have the support in here, we can start building our fender mounts, our real mounts for the fender. So first thing we do is we're going to be channeling this part out of the fender. Oscar already got a few swipes at the cutting wheel on here, and that's going to allow clearance to clear over this piece right here. And from there, we're going to build mounting points, tabs, everything like that. We put a tab into here, tab into here, and then mount down here and down here. And then obviously you have the up higher mounts as well. And then, so Oscar's going to work on fitting both of the fenders onto the front, like with the permanent mounts and everything. All right, guys, it is getting quite late, and we're about to wrap this one up. I wanted to give you guys an update on what Zane's doing. A little sneak peek, I guess. So this is our secret weapon for custom fabrication on this SEMA build. This is a very large format 3D printer, something I bought at the end of last year, and we haven't had time to set it up, and now it's like crunch time. So I called Zane, asked for some help. And he's been like, I mean, you could see how many pieces and parts go into making this thing, but it can print about almost 7 feet wide by 2 feet by 2 feet. And I'll tell you more about this in the next episode, hopefully when we get it fired up and do some test prints. But this is a big deal for BS4Build moving forward because it allows us to go straight from computer to full-size car body parts. It's pretty epic. So fingers crossed. We'll talk more about that in the next episode, but really exciting to get Zane back on the crew. Helping us with that, but he's got a couple more days and then he's off to Japan. Now Kyle's back with us. He was doing some seasonal work, protecting our forests, fighting those fires. He was actually just driving a truck full of gas, so we can't really trust Kyle. Who knows? He could have been starting them. I mean, he was really nondescript about his job.
He didn't specify, no.
He did not specify what he was doing with that truck full of gas.
We don't even know if he really had gas.
Yeah. Anyways, it's just really cool to have everybody back in the shop, and we're all just kind of getting together, bonding together to get this SEMA build cranked out in time. Bumper, tack welded in. I got to test fit a bunch of pieces. Need more hands. Going to do that tomorrow. Doors are looking pretty dang great. What the deal was is I said we were going to move on to the fenders, but we can't set the fenders until we set the doors exactly perfectly. So this is the set the doors exactly perfectly moment, and then we move on to the fenders and just build the front end out. But we've test fit it, so we know it will fit. It's just we're dialing things in for good now, and that's like I explained earlier in this episode. That's where a lot of the tedious time comes in, because you got to like make sure you weld everything up and seam seal everything up and do everything properly so it can be on there permanently forever. This episode spanned a lot of filming. At this point now, I'll put this episode out tomorrow. You guys will see it. We have 16 days Oh my God, saying that out loud is so nerve-wracking. 16 days until SEMA. 2 weeks and 2 days until SEMA. Some of the topics that we talked about in today's episode, like mechanical engineering and engineering in general, might seem a little bit complicated, but there is a really fun way, an easy, free way to learn about them, and that is today's sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is the best way to learn math, computer science, and data science interactively. It's fun, it's interactive, there's thousands of lessons from basic to very advanced topics, and new lessons are added every month. Whatever your skill level is, Brilliant customizes their content to help you learn at your own pace and at your own speed. One interesting course I think you guys might like is How Technology Works. It helps break down really complicated things into more bite-sized chunks. You can explore topics like what actually makes a password good, or how recommended algorithms work and know what content you'll like, or things like breaking down basic electrical for hacking different cars into different cars. And right now you guys can get started totally for free, and the first 200 of you can get 20% off of an annual plan. All you got to do is hit the link at the top of my description. It's also on the screen right here. So check it out, guys. Links at the top of the description. I think you're really going to like it. Thanks, Brilliant, for sponsoring another episode. In the next episode, I think we will get stuff bolted on to the point where we can take this thing for a shakedown, a test drive, make sure it's functioning well before we go into the custom B is for Build touches. All right, guys, make sure you subscribe, ring a bell, just ring one in your house at random, wake up your neighbors, do one digitally, don't really care. But that will help you maybe not miss any future episodes on this build or the build afterwards. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace!
Come on!